Hi everyone, thank you for joining this month's Stampin' Class by Mail. I'm Gina Wieselman of MySweetPaper.com and I'm so excited to share these designs with you. We'll be using the Florals in Bloom Suite by Stampin' Up. If you ordered a Class by Mail kit, go ahead and pull out those supplies now. If you didn't order a kit and will be cutting your own supplies, visit my website linked in the video description to access the full supply list with measurements. You'll also need the stamp set, ink pads, and other supply items shown here. If you need any supplies, make sure to designate me as your demonstrator to qualify for all of my promotions, including receiving 3 completed cards from my collection with every order of $50 or more. Click subscribe on this YouTube channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos, and reach out anytime you have questions or would like to chat more about Stampin' Up. Let's get started. Our first card design is our Let Joy Bloom design. If you ordered a Class by Mail kit, go ahead and pull out these parts and pieces now. If you didn't order a kit, pause the video here, prep these supplies, and come back when you're ready to stamp and assemble. We are going to start with our stamping, and we'll be using the Secret C ink pad. This is one of the new in colors this year, and I just love it. We'll be stamping the front, Let Joy Bloom, and so it's stamped at a diagonal, and I want to make sure that I kind of angle it appropriately. Depending on how much you trust your stamping, you could definitely glue down these pieces first. My general protocol is that I stamp before I glue anything. Just in case I don't like my placement. Now, if these shy shamrock pieces are just getting in the way, I would actually probably recommend just moving them out and only adding the designer series paper here for now, because there is a little bit of wiggle room. You can make some minor adjustments in placement on the shy shamrock pieces. So you just want to make sure that you don't end up accidentally stamping and getting ink on those pieces. We'll see how I do. I'm going to lay everything out and ink up the bloom stamp first. And then with this one, I am just angling it so that it is in line with those pieces. There we go. They shifted, but that is okay at this point because I got that stamped. And then the Let Joy, I can take these pieces off if I want. I might keep them on just for angle purposes, but this I'm tucking down so that it is within the boundary of the top of those letters. So if those little green pieces scatter, that is fine. There we go. Okay, that's it for the stamping on the outside of the card. If you'd like to stamp your envelope, now is a great time to do that. So let me grab my envelope. And for this envelope, I'm just going to keep it simple with this little piece of foliage. I do like to have a little something on the envelope. Of course, if you had the shy shamrock color, you could use that instead for this, but I think this looks great too. So that is all of the stamping. I'll put my envelope aside and let's start with assembly. So this is pretty simple here. If I can find my Stampin' Seal, here it is. I am just going to put my Stampin' Seal on these 2 pieces. Squaring it up in the corners. And I should note for cutting this, I started with just a rectangular piece of designer series paper, and then I measured about 1 inch from each side. So that's 1 inch. I marked that on the paper. That's 1 inch. I marked that on the paper and then used my trimmer to get that angle. But perk of the kit, that is already cut for you. Then I'll put this piece on as well. I like to flip over and just double check if there's any overhang. It looks like I maybe have a tiny bit. So I'll grab my paper snips, just like everything to line up as perfectly as possible. I didn't do a great job of getting this perfectly in the corners, but that's okay. Okay, and now here's where, if you are off at all in your placement and you need to overlap this with the designer series paper, that is just fine. You can go right on top, or if you have the room to put it against the edge, that works too. And you can do differently on the top and bottom if you decide that you want a little bit more showing on one side than the other. So I'm going to go ahead and use my liquid adhesive glue for this. And I'm just running a super narrow thread of that along the side. Okay. There we go. I'm going to let this set just for a second so that that glue can dry a little bit. In the meantime, I will bring out my other basic white piece and this other piece of designer series paper. And you can decide where you want to place this. It's just a narrow strip, so it doesn't probably capture a full flower or anything like that. But I like just to have a little bit of something on the inside of the card. Then I'll go ahead and grab my Shy Shamrock card base, use the bone folder to crease that. I'll add this insert to the inside. And the designer series paper is directional, so depending on where you placed it, make sure you know that the stems are going down. There we go. And now before I adhere this, I'll just bring out my paper snips and trim the excess. And then I'll use Stampin' Seal. And just center this. Last touch here, your kit included 2 of the pearls from the adhesive backed pearl trio, and I am just going to position them on this right side. So together with our stamped envelope, there is the first card design. Our second card design is our Lovely Day card. And here are the parts and pieces for this design. Once again, we are going to start with our stamping. So the 2 pieces that we'll be stamping are this smaller basic white piece and the flower. So we're going to be using both Secret Sea and our Peach Pie ink for these. And let's go ahead and start with the greeting on the front. Once again, the placement of this matters because there isn't a ton of extra room around the word lovely. So I'm just going to lay that out. And fortunately here, these stamps that we're adding are quite small. So I'm just going to add have a and the word day. Like so. That's all the stamping for this panel, so I'll set that aside. And now for this piece, we have our 2-step stamping with the flowers as well as the stem and leaves. I'm going to just bring out a piece of scrap paper that's a darker color. I find that if I can see the contrast between what I'm stamping and the background, it's easier for positioning. So I'm going to start with the flowers. just center them to the best of your ability. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the stems. And so for this, I'm looking to make sure that those leaves match up and that bottom stem in particular, and everything else should kind of work itself out. Okay, that looks pretty good. While I am stamping, I'm also going to bring out the envelope. For this one, I'm going to start with the leaves and stems because I want to make sure that it doesn't run off the bottom. And then I'll come back and add my flowers. There we go. That is all of our stamping for this card, so I'll go ahead and put my ink pads away. Now for assembly, I'm going to start with my card base, use my bone folder and score or crease that along the score line. And then I'm just gonna kind of start building the card front. So you have two pieces of basic white. One is for the front of the card, one goes on the inside. So just use one of them for now. The first thing I'm going to do is add my designer series paper to that white panel. I think I'm getting close to running out on this one. I'll have to refill. Just get this in the corner. Okay, if there's any excess overhang, go ahead and trim. And then your kit also has two of these pieces. They are the same length, so we'll just put one of them on the card front. All right, with the magic of video editing, I now have a refilled Stampin' Seal for us. And I will place this right along the edge of that first piece of designer series paper. Okay. And then this, I think I did cut a little bit long, so I'll trim that excess. While I am working on that, I'm going to bring out the other panel, the other basic white piece, and just add this to one side here. Trim and get this inside the card. Okay. Next up, I'm going to work on this front focal panel. To start with, I will just adhere that stamped piece onto my peach pie cardstock. Let's go ahead. I should have done this before. Let's get this out of the way. This just goes right on the card front. So we will get that here and have one less piece shuffling around. There we go. And now we can come back and add our word lovely. For adhering the peach pie portion, I'm going to use my mini glue dots. You could also use liquid glue if you wanted. I find that sometimes I have a hard time not shifting it around, and I just don't want any smeary glue pieces to be showing on the card front. So I'm just going to do a few of these glue dots. I feel I can control them a little bit more. Get one more on the E here. And these are actually quite sticky, so they should do a good job of holding everything in place. I put one here on the Y, on the tail. I'll just fold that over. And then get this positioned. Okay. Then the nice thing about this very detailed piece, this is really narrow. Doing liquid glue or glue dots on this would be pretty tricky. So I added adhesive sheets to the back when I was prepping your kit. So what I recommend is starting to peel it and positioning it right on the peach pie. And then I just kind of pull a little bit more of the backing as I move across so that I'm never dealing with the entire unwieldy, very sticky word all being sticky at the same time. This allows me a little bit more care in placement, I have found. Okay, give some nice firm pressure on that, but it should all be in place. Next, I'm going to grab my Stampin' Dimensionals, and I'm going to go ahead and just put maybe 4, 5 or 6, somewhere in there. 5 is a good number. We'll go with that. On the back here, peel those release papers. And center this up. Okay. Next, I'll bring out the stamped flowers. I'm going to run some Stampin' Seal along one side, the left side, just to adhere these together. And then placement of this, it's mostly on the panel, a little bit bumps off, but you know, you could play around and do Stampin' Seal on some and maybe a mini dimensional on some. I actually found that the Stampin' Seal just right along that edge was enough to secure it. So I am just not going to mess with additional mini dimensionals, but if you wanted a little bit more stability, you certainly could add that. All right, and our finishing touch is 2 of our 2024-2026 in color flat pearls. I will note that these come in 3 different sizes. So for your kit, you're getting 2 different sizes for each card. Maybe it's the large and the medium, a large and a small, a medium and a small, but either way, you will have 2 different sizes to add right there. And bringing out our stamped envelope, there is our second card design. Our third and final card design is our Hello Floral Fun Fold. And here are the parts and pieces for this design. Once again, we'll start with our stamping, again using our Secret C ink pad. And the stamping for this card is about as simple as it gets. You are just going to take this Hello stamp and stamp it right on the banner. And this banner piece was die cut using the Tasteful Labels dies. I centered it. If you were going to err in either direction, possibly a little further to the right might work, but really I think centering it works fine because we'll have an embellishment and ribbon to balance out. That's all the stamping for the card front. If you want, feel free to stamp your envelope as well. I actually liked the simplicity of that on the first card, so I'm going to do that again, and then I'll put away my ink pad. With our stamping complete, we will go ahead and start our assembly. So first, I'm going to take this piece and fold it in half along the score line. This first portion is going to be glued down, so I'll fold that back on itself. I want to fold this over, but that is not what I'm going to do. I need to close it and bring it back here. And that's just going to give us that little dimension, that little pop. It looks a little funny because we do still have to add this panel to it. So that ultimately is what is going to finish our fun fold. Before I do that, I'm going to come in here and just in that narrow strip, I'm going to be pretty generous with my Stampin' Seal and secure that part down. And now with this folded back, I'm going to put adhesive on that entire panel, making sure not to run off the edges. But then I can take this additional piece of soft C and center that from left to right and make sure it is all set from top to bottom. Okay, looks good. So now we have our fun fold. With that, we'll add our designer series paper. So the larger piece is going to be the focal point in the center. And this is directional, so I'm looking to make sure we have flowers on top of stems. And I will center this up on that panel. And then you have two of these smaller pieces. They are the same size, so I'm just going to go ahead and get adhesive on both of them, and then we'll put them on either side. So this side I find easiest to do first. And when I'm placing this, what I'm doing is trying to aim for equal borders on the three sides. The fourth side isn't as critical because that is actually going to be covered up by this panel. And that becomes even more important on this part because there's a lot more space to work with. So even borders on three sides. This paper is not directional, so either orientation will work. And then I will take the basic white and position that inside. So for this, I'm trying to match now this border with those three and line up the basic white so that it's aligned at top and bottom. I'm going to bring out my mini Stampin' Dimensionals and the stamped banner. And I think 3 of these will be a good number for this. So I'll just peel those release papers. And placement wise, I want this to be on the front. I don't really want it hanging over that side. A little bit of overhang is fine, but I'm just going to place it like this. Once again, for our embellishment, we'll be using the flat pearls, but these colors are the 2025 to 2027 in colors. And for your card, you got one of each size. So I liked the look of the small one right there. I'm gonna bring out my bow as well, just so I can see where that will be placed. And then I like to put them in the white space so they don't get lost. So I'll just kind of sprinkle those around like that. And then finally, I will take a mini glue dot for my bow. And I'm going to position that to the side at enough of an angle so that the word hello doesn't get covered up. So with our stamped envelope, there is our third and final fun fold card design. Follow the link in the video description to access my website posting about this month's class by mail. It includes the full supply list with measurements, as well as a link to a curated Pinterest board with more ideas for how to use your supplies. You can also find more information about the next class by mail on my website. If you're not already on my email list, go to tinyurl.com/mysweetpaperemail to sign up. I always love hearing from you, so leave a comment on this video and let me know what you thought of the designs. Until next time, happy stamping.